Filmmaking is the one art, no matter how talented you are, you cannot do it alone. You need a collaborative spirit to do that. So if Game of Thrones or whatever goes to shoot in Morocco, there's a tax incentive. The countries that are doing well, they are all following a certain model globally and in Africa. As you are talking about it in the social spaces and you are taking it to Parliament, those who are enabling those cultural things are including it in what your children are watching.
What do you think is holding everyone back?
I wouldn't put the fault on policymakers, though there's some fault there. If you look at the money flow and you see that you have something you call soft power. Soft power is not via guns or all of that. Soft power,
Subliminal. Hello, this is Fields of Alkebulan. I'm excited that we begin this journey. Fields of Alkebulan was just first a newspaper column. We wrote articles on Africa's growth, economic growth, and we've decided to put it together as a podcast now. So we still have the column published in the Business and Financial Times newspaper, but we are adding these face to it. So I'm excited to say today is the first recording, and I'm happy to have the Juliet Yaa Asantewa Asante as my first guest. I'm happy she's my first guest because Juliet is one of the people that I am comfortable around. Well, I've been very comfortable around in the industry, in the media space, and we've had many conversations, interviews in the past, and even personal conversations. Yeah, so I would say Juliet is a friend. She is a filmmaker. She is the founder of the Black Star International Film Festival, and she is a policy advocate for creative industries. So what is this episode about? This episode is about Africa's creative economy. And it's a vast under-drilled oil field. And its film industry is the gusher, really. So in this episode, I'll be discussing with Juliet, who is a visionary, who's been bridging the gap between creatives and policymakers, right? She focuses on cinema entrepreneurship, the business of storytelling, and we would say that Africa is a billion-dollar market, and we need to exploit better. So yes, we are here, Juliet, recording this very first episode of Fields of Alkebulan podcast. And as I said earlier, I'm excited. It is you that I get to speak to first. And yeah, so let's dive in. How have you been? What have you been up to? I mean, tell me all about your exploits in the past, let's say 2 months.
2 months.
Yes.
Oh my God. First of all, thank you so much for making me your first.
And I'm glad you accepted.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's no way I couldn't have. I
Yes.
mean, you've been known to, your journalism stands out. And I'm really honored that you considered me for this conversation. And I'm really excited because I know that you know, being in the seat, we will go in all manner of spaces. But yeah, the last 2 months has been for me, first of all, resting. I
Okay.
think rest is very important, and we don't give it enough spotlight. Rest is important, and when you rest, you are able to be more creative.
Yes.
Maybe define your journey, find out,
Yes.
you know, be able to discover the sweet spot for you where you intend to go. And, I've been doing this for over 30 years. So it's very important that one steps back and have an overview, a bird's eye view, an eagle's eye view, whatever it is, of the journey and perhaps the best places to connect the dots. So for me, it's been doing all of that and really also allowing myself to receive, because most of the time we are giving. And in this space, I'm giving a lot.
That's
and
true.
so,
That's true.
to get myself to the space where I am receiving, I think is a really great experience.
What have you been receiving?
Oh, I've been receiving a lot of goodwill, a lot
Yes.
of good conversations, a lot of helpful conversations, a lot of insights, a lot of loving from my family and friends and people around me. And I would even say a lot of loving from the things that I've created in the past. Sometimes you create and you never, it's like you plant a tree and you never get to sit under that tree. And once in a while, if you are blessed, I recently wrote something that said that God only gives the opportunity to reinvent oneself to a favored few. And so the opportunity to reinvent yourself, to look at your journey and decide where you want to go, I think is a luxury. And redefining yourself, I think is a luxury. And I'm excited to be one of the favored few.
You mentioned 30 years on this journey.
Right.
And I mean, I've watched you, paid attention.
Thank you.
We watched you when you were acting and then you came into the business of film. Your journey for a period of time, having become the founder of the Black Star International Film Festival and president of Eagles Production, it's more like an intersection between creativity, the creative space, and commerce. And so I'm interested in knowing from all that you've experienced, how is the business of storytelling doing across the continent? Because you have also worked very widely across the continent. Yes.
So, filmmaking is an interesting art. It is, and I say that intentionally, it's an art, but it's also a business. And filmmaking is one of the few art forms that one person cannot do. If I'm a painter or whatever, editor, whatever, I can have my equipment, sit behind my desk, edit, whatever I want to do. If I want to paint, even if I want to make music, nowadays with technology, I can probably do it as a solo, artist, do everything in the studio. But filmmaking is the one art, no matter how talented you are, you cannot do it alone. You need a collaborative spirit to do that, meaning that you need, if you even look at this space we are sitting, you probably have a lighting person, a camera person, an editor, a writer, the presenter yourself. I mean, it's a collaborative art. And in that space sits squarely the commerce side of it. Because if you are not able to energize your art with money, because it's expensive to make, then ultimately you are not able to. So it's not just money, it's infrastructure, it's the right people. I talked about how many talents or how many people you need to make a film. So there's skill sets in that mix. Then there's marketers, there's distributors, there's designers, it's such an expansive space. And so without commerce running it, you'll be stifled, or you'll be choked. Because how do you pay all of this? How do you market your work? You cannot make your film and sit in the room and watch your film yourself. You need it to go out there. You need an audience. You need it to travel. Film is you mentioned the Black Star International Film Festival, and this year the theme is the relevance of film to society. So be it you are informing society, you are educating society, you are entertaining society, all of those things, you need the drive behind it, which is money. And I think that's where, for us, money, infrastructure, the skill sets, those are have been the gaps and the enablers of those spaces. So, for instance, if you take the entire continent of how many people, how many screens do we have? The UNESCO report of 2020 said that we have less than 1,700 screens. I mean, you are talking about that number of screens to over 1.5 or 1.3 billion people. That's nowhere enough. Even France, which is one country, has 6,000 screens. So if Africa as an entire continent has just 1,700, somebody might say, oh, screens are not that important. We have digital means of distribution, but the people you are competing with have access to both or have access to all. So if you have access to just one, then you are in trouble. When it comes to the enablers, you're talking about distribution, marketers, platforms, all of those things. We struggle there as well. So I would say, except for a few countries are doing well because of different dynamics, or I would say unique dynamics. The rest of Africa is struggling when it comes to the commercial side of the arts.
I mean, so how do we manage this? Because Hollywood has made a lot of strides in this regard. There are systems that are working in there. Everybody talks about Bollywood. That's the Indian film space. There are systems that are working and they are thriving. What is wrong with the Africa cinema scene or the storytelling scene in Africa? What is the problem? What is not working? Or what is working? What is not working?
Great question. And it's interesting because humanity by its nature builds on each other. That's how we've come to where we are as the human race. So for instance, if I want to use the phone, I don't have to manufacture a phone to use a phone. Somebody has come up with the idea. Someone has designed it. Someone has gone to the whatever. So for me, when it gets to me, at what point in the user space or in the space do I fall in? And we build on that. Same for the film industry. There's been a template. You mentioned some spaces. You mentioned Hollywood, you mentioned Bollywood, all of those things. And other countries that are doing well, equally well. Europe is doing very well. So there are templates, and nobody has to reinvent the wheel at all. But we seem to want to reinvent the wheel when it comes to Africa. You know what I'm saying? Like many countries seem to, it's like, oh, what should we do to improve our film industry? It's been done. It's being done. Even there are few African countries that are doing well, that are doing those things. I can mention some of those things. No film industry is going to do well without a tax incentive. Why? Because, I mentioned earlier that film is a collaborative venture. You need people to come and shoot in your country, to come and work in your country. When they come, they bring expertise, they bring money, they bring all the things that you lack. You also work with them. It gives you the space to expand. It's a collaborative space. Every country that has done well has a tax incentive. We do not have many African countries. I mean, less than 25% of African countries, 25% is even overstating it, has tax incentive. So therein, where are the big bucks? Because if, let's say, Australia can put their sector down and say that economically, this space has brought maybe 300 billion or trillion within the last year. UNESCO says that Africa has the potential to attract over 20 billion.
Potential.
I'm
also
also
in the potential
exactly.
zone. Okay.
But in the reality zone, we are actually at 5 billion, right? Last year, I'm sure I'm also the founder of the Africa Cinema Summit, or the convener of it. At the summit last year, people actually even challenged that and said the potential is over 100 billion. But we are 5 billion as we speak. UNESCO also says that we could be employing over 20 million we are only employing 5 million, right? So look at the gap. But one country in Europe is making more than that. Why? Because they have a tax incentive. They have infrastructure in place. They have the facility in place. They have trained their staff. They've trained the right people to work on the production. So if, let's say, you have a foreign production that is coming to shoot, that is bringing to your economy, let's say, $200 or $500 million, and one film can bring that amount of money. No one will want to bring all of their crew to your country. It's too expensive. So countries are kind of competing. Where do I go next? And who is giving me the best incentives to come? So if you don't have the incentive, you must have something else. So if you take the story of Nigeria doesn't have incentives, but Nigeria has numbers. They have so much more. They have expertise. They have a lot that maybe perhaps other African countries do not have. If you go to South Africa has infrastructure. They have, for instance, you can have the right crew. You have, equipment, spaces. You can rent all your equipment from South Africa. In addition, they have a tax incentive. So if you take the case of Morocco, they have a tax incentive. So if Game of Thrones or whatever goes to shoot in Morocco, there's a tax incentive. I think now is over, the last time I checked, it's over 30% tax incentive. So if you look at the countries that are doing well, they are all following a certain model, globally and in Africa. So perhaps we need to ask ourselves, what is preventing us from committing to following those templates? I call it templates because, again, it's not rocket science, right? Why are we not able to follow through is the question.
You have had a lot of interactions with policymakers.
Right.
So I want to throw that question back to you. You've spoken with them. I mean, you've been on
I've
a
been
lot
a
of
policymaker
you've been
myself. Sure.
fantastic.
Right.
So why are we not following the template? What is the hindrance, you think? What do you think is holding everyone back?
I wouldn't put the fault on policymakers, though there's some fault there. There's a shared fault, Let's all share the
We're
fault.
sharing the pie.
Let's share the pie. Let's not put it all on one person, right? The policymaker perhaps is not taking the right steps and putting in the infrastructure. But the people that the infrastructure is about, are they concerned? Do they care? Do they even know what to do? Are they interested? Are they supportive? Are they expanding? Are they explaining? Are they spotlighting? Are they amplifying their issues? Are they stating with clarity to the policymaker what the policymaker needs to do? And are they following through with that advocacy? Those are some of the questions to ask because, my short time in policy, I know that and we know even before you enter policy, even when you talk economics, there's never enough. There's always shortage of resources, and resources always goes to the best place that, so-called perceived, I will use the word perceived, the best use of those resources. So if a policymaker, especially in our part of the world, intends to put resources behind a space, there must be demonstrable outcomes, right? So, of course, when it comes to government, the outcome may not necessarily be that of a private person. So, government may not be looking for even money, but even government looks for money. So, if I put resources or money here, how many people is this sector going to employ? How much is going to come into the economy? Those are some of the conversations we need to have with the policymaker. For the policymaker to realize that, if I have limited resources and I'm going to put it in health or agri or education, these are very critical spaces for African nations. If I put it in the film space, how much will it bring me as opposed to if I put it in these spaces? And the interesting thing, and I want to use the word, the sad thing, is that we can prove why the film space or the creative space perhaps should be the number one place to invest, and how the outcomes will far outweigh perhaps investments in other critical spaces.
Yeah.
And why it will even enable us to have more to invest in those spaces that we care about. But we are not speaking the right language. We are not doing the right things. And so we are where we are today.
What is the right language? What are the right things? Because, I mean, everyone who is watching,
Right,
listening
right,
right now would want to know,
right,
what are these things that we've got to do?
right.
Yes.
I think I've kind of touched on
You've
them,
touched on them, but I, we need to be quite specific. I mean, if there's a young person watching right now, listening right now,
right,
we've touched on points which is also very important, where everything is not going right.
right,
But a young person who is interested in film, a young person who would want to venture into this space. It looks gloomy right now. What should this young individual or these young individuals, including policymakers, what are these things that are so, great that we need to explore?
So first of all, the people themselves must want to win to be able to win. It all comes down to that, right? And if you want to win, it means that you'll be more collaborative. It means that you will do more research. You will position yourself rightly. It means that you will support the initiatives that are doing well. It means that you don't become crabs in the bucket where you are fighting yourselves instead of enabling yourselves. And so perhaps as African countries, when you take the Maslow hierarchy of needs, we are still at the place where we are thinking about our very basic needs. So it's very difficult for us to think above our basic needs. And when people are at the level of their basic needs, their instincts are different. So obviously, some time ago, I would rattle what we need to do. I'm no longer in that space where I'm rattling results or rattling best practices, because best practices always, and I've said that there's so many conversations where I've talked about the things that we need to do.
Yes.
But I think that we need to backtrack. Perhaps go back to basis, go back to the foundation of things, right? So what do I mean by this? So example, as a country, I'm just going to give some examples. As a country, there are certain cultural norms that are evading our countries that, or our continent that we are not very happy about, right?
Yeah.
And so we take a certain angle to handle it, i.e., we take it to parliament, we take it to government, we take it on the social level, we take it on. Now, let me tell you why that's a losing battle. Because as you are talking about it in the social spaces and you are taking it to parliament, those who are enabling those cultural things are including it in what your children are watching. Right?
Yeah.
So by the time you finish talking in parliament and you come back to your home, your children are sitting there open and accepting of these things that you are
fighting in
parliament.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the world know that the way to infiltrate a people is through their visuals and through their minds. It's not even about money. If you look at the money flow and you see that you have something you call soft power. Soft power is not via guns or all of that. Soft power,
subliminal. Yes.
Right? So we are fighting a battle on a social level at a place where we've already lost the battle.
When we can use storytelling to do that, to
do
achieve
that. So
yes.
that kid, by the time the kid is 5 years old or 10 years old, how many times do you, the parent, even gets to how many times do you get to talk to that child of yours about your own cultural values?
Yeah.
Perhaps even the teacher has more impact. But beyond the teacher who has less impact, the television is what is doing the work for you. YouTube is what is doing the work for you. TikTok is what is doing the work for you. The films they are watching, recently there's a film, I will use that example, that has just come on Netflix called Demon Hunters, K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yes.
My kids have watched that film
100 times.
Thank you.
I watched it with my kids 2 weekends ago.
Thank you.
I was wondering why I'm allowing this.
Thank you.
Yes.
And their songs, and perhaps we are all singing. I love that film. But those who made that film, whatever subliminal message they had,
yes,
it's already
it's gone
in your home.
Yes.
And you are sitting in parliament saying what?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
By the time your kid will start living that life, you'll probably even be too old and dead, or you'll go home with some kind of cultural positioning, and your kids will argue with you.
Yes.
So again, whoever we are as a people, whatever we are as a people, whether we are maintaining our culture, whether we are looking for people to be more responsive to the environment, whether we want people to be more collaborative, whether we want people to be more patriotic, whether we want people to be more positive rather than negative, well, all of these things are things that we can use the vehicle of storytelling to impact our society, which we are not. It doesn't just stop there. We have a continent that within 7 years will have the largest youth population globally, right? And by the same UNESCO reports, we know that this sector is the largest employer. So even if you're looking to employ all of these young people, which sector should you enable? Obviously, it should be the creative space, because they are going to create the jobs. The barriers to entry are so low.
Yeah.
I can take my camera and start creating content right there. So if you want to employ the largest number of people, that's what you need to focus on, because this sector is what is going to create the jobs.
Yes.
This sector is what is going to create the money. The kind of soft money that this sector can pull in very quickly, no other sector has that capacity. In fact, during COVID in the US, the sector was proven to be the biggest employer, paying people averagely over 40% above every other sector, including oil and gas and communication.
Because everyone was at home and everyone was watching.
Exactly.
Yes, and that was
exactly.
We will talk about all the money that the sector can rake in, but would like to take a quick break and then we'll circle back. Awesome. So we were just discussing the social impact of film. And I really enjoyed that bit, because that's the bit that people don't I mean, we know that stories form perception, and stories affect or come to influence our intellect. We do know that, but it's almost as if we don't know how huge the impact can be on young minds and even on all of us. Also, people don't see how tangible the gains can be from this industry in this space. There are people who there are parts of the world where they have tried it, they've tested it, and they benefit from it. So much so that there are gatekeepers who wouldn't want to lose their stake in the game. But it's almost as if in our parts. Let me start with Ghana. Because we are having this conversation in Ghana, although it affects the entirety of the continent. It's almost as if in our parts, we are reluctant in knowing that this brings tangible gains, both socio-culturally and even economically. Tell me about policy making in this space. You have been there. I want to know, how was your work received when you were in government?
So for me, it was a very interesting experience because it was an intentional experience, or it was an intentional activity, as in I'm a sector player, been in the sector for ages, recognize some problems, realize that, my God, nobody is going to solve this problem for me or my sector. How can I impact, or what difference can I make? And I actually made a plan to set aside about 10 to 15 years of my life to try and fix that. That meant stepping away from my business, going back to school. In fact, losing a lot of things because I had to step away from even Ghana, going back to school, doing my master's in public policy and public administration, coming back, creating a platform, advocating for a space, joining other colleagues to advocated so much behind the scenes. In fact, for me, my work has been primarily behind the scenes. People think what they see me do is what they see me do, but the magnitude of my work has been behind the scenes, and speaking truth to power and speaking numbers to power and doing all of those things. And then when it was time, obviously, because I'd done so much work that was documented, then it was like, okay, you've advocated so much. You said we can do this. You said you can do this. Come and do it, which was part of my life's journey anyway, and my intention. So for me, it was a very deliberate step, an intentional step. And so I've heard in some quarters somebody even saying, Juliet hit the ground running. Of course, I hit the ground running because, like I said, what to do is a template. It's already out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And of course, knowing our specific space is also realizing that in the environment we've created, you only have a very short time to do what you have to do, right? You don't have forever. And so for me, it was like, okay, this is part of the plan. How quickly can we achieve this? How quickly can we catch up? I think for me, where the learning was, or where the abrupt interruption was a recognition, or coming to face with the fact that perhaps as a people we were not ready. And so, was my intervention at the right time? For me, yes. For many people, yes. For a lot of people, no. From the government's point of view, like I said, and my understanding of policy and government with my interaction, it's not about charity. It's about numbers. It's about clarity. It's about conversations. It's about value. And if the people are not, you cannot help a people who are not ready to be helped. And I'm not saying this, saying that trying to put anybody down. But if somebody is like a lady who is ready to marry, when you are ready to marry, you are completely different from a lady who doesn't want to marry. And if you want to force a lady who doesn't want to marry, obviously we know what
There will be pushback.
Yeah. And so if you look at the industry and you do a cross section of the industry, there's a very young, crowd that is hungry for knowledge, hungry for progress, hungry for new things, curious enough to try new things. In fact, desperate for opportunity to try new things. Then there's that middle space of people who have achieved some things and see themselves as gatekeepers. And so, as gatekeepers, it is in their interest for things to perhaps remain the way they are, because that's the gate they know how to keep.
Because they can't go beyond it.
Because if the gate post changes, if the goalpost changes, they will lose their position. And so they need to fight you in every sense of the word, so that, but in every society, change is tough. And people are not ready for change. And people always benefit from the status quo. So you always have to look at, if things remain a certain way, or if things are a certain way, who are the people who are benefiting, right? So though I would say they form the majority in the middle. And my God, you can't overlook those people because they set the tone, right? And then you have the have-beens at the top. In fact, me, you can even call me a have-been.
Yeah.
Who have achieved a lot, perhaps could be retiring and thinking about themselves. Some people have done well for themselves. Some people haven't. So if you have, then it's like, how do I enjoy my whatever? And then if you haven't, it's like, then I'm in the final stages and I'm desperate. And then there are the small number of people who are like, I can make a difference.
Okay.
But you no longer have the kind of energy of the middle group. And you are above the curiosity and the hunger of the bottom group. And so for me, perhaps I would say that, and I'm not being pompous in saying this. Why am I not being pompous? Because some of the things that I have done have been adopted by other countries and they are running with it and is doing well.
What are some of those things?
For instance, we launched something called Shoot in Ghana.
Okay, yeah, I remember
Ivory
that.
Coast took it immediately. We now have Shoot in Ivory Coast.
Okay.
Uganda took it immediately. We now have Shoot in Uganda. Other countries are following very quickly.
So that's a campaign. But how well is the campaign doing on those fronts?
So on those fronts, it's a process.
Okay.
I mentioned several things, including tax incentive, all of those things. I mentioned the template. The template is out there.
I think in those countries that have adopted the
they haven't stopped. They are still in the process.
Yeah, okay.
So perhaps they are taking the steps. If you take Ivory Coast is taking some huge steps.
Okay.
Uganda is taking some steps. Even, sitting here as a Ghanaian, several countries reach out to me all the time. Can you help us with this? Can you consult on this? Can you guide us on this? But the campaign is at a standstill in Ghana. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So perhaps Ghana is not ready for it. That doesn't mean that other African countries are not.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, whoever is able to adapt and adopt and run and put in place the infrastructure, I was just talking to a colleague who said to me, who was actually supposed to come and build studios in Ghana. And the person was telling me, and the person was like, Ghana, you are not ready for our studios. And so we are taking our studios to a different country. And they have, unfortunately. And they've gotten the land, they've gotten the support, they've gotten the tax incentive, and they are almost starting to build a studio there.
Ghana lost that, but another African country.
Of course. I mean, and so many African countries
Do you mind sharing?
No, I'm not going to share.
I mean, let's go ahead.
But I think the countries that you see, just and this news will spread very quickly. We just, for instance, made an announcement about partnering with the largest cinema in Ivory Coast.
I was getting on that, yes.
Right? So many filmmakers in other African countries. We made the announcement just yesterday.
Yeah.
So many filmmakers in other African countries have reached out and said, I want to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm an English filmmaker. I'm from Nigeria. I'm from Gambia. I'm from Sierra Leone. I'm from Cameroon. I'm from Togo, wherever. How can I be part of this and distribute my film in Ivory Coast? No Ghanaian filmmaker has reached out to us yet. Does that tell you something? And yet we are in Ghana. It's a Ghanaian organization that has brokered this deal for English-speaking Africa. And are you trying to tell me that there's no Ghanaian filmmaker who can potentially distribute their film in Ivory Coast with the largest cinema chain in Ivory Coast?
I want to stay on that, not on the Ghana bit, but I want to stay on the fact that this partnership has brought something to bear across the continent, and some nations and other filmmakers across the continent are taking advantage of it. How many calls have you received so far? How many commitments have you been able to secure so far? I know that as at the time we are having this conversation, the announcement is just a day old. but what is the interest you see from filmmakers who are reaching out? Is the interest legit, valid? Um, are they wishing to see through to the end? I mean, what are you seeing? What are you
I think this
from where
is
you
a
sit?
revolutionary announcement and opportunity. And
I think it's called Majesty Cinemas. Huh?
yes, Majestic Cinemas. So this is the first time that a French-speaking, first of all, we struggle about markets. So let me break it down. It's like you have one market or two marketplaces, and then you have a big market from somewhere show up.
Mhm.
You've never had that market before.
Okay.
There are people who will immediately say, we are not ready for the new market. It's too big for us, or we don't understand, or it will come and disrupt the markets that we have. The small market, we like our things the way they are. And then there are people who will immediately be curious. Oh, what does this mean? Does it mean I can also sell in this market? What do I need to do? Because it's a process. Nothing is, you don't just take your film and go and sit in Majesty Cinema and show it. There's a whole process. You, the filmmaker, even as you are going in to make your film, you need to understand what the do's and don'ts are. For instance, if you are an English filmmaker and you want to go and show in Ivory Coast, perhaps you need to dub, you need to do subtitling. We are going to make another announcement next week as well that has to do with the largest dubbing, agency in Africa that is also part of this agreement to be able to dub the films I want to show in Ivory Coast. And then there are those who are like, I want to grab this. What does this mean? I'm ready for it. So this deal was obviously brokered by the Black Star International Film Festival. This is a festival that is the largest, in fact, first film festival to take grounds in Ghana. And every other festival that has come after it either came to learn from the festival or came out of the festival, right? And this, festival has brokered this deal. This deal, of course, the festival started as a Ghanaian festival. It's still predominantly a Ghanaian festival, but it serves the Pan-African ecosystem. It's a Pan-African film festival. So we don't count our success purely on how many Ghanaians are interested. We count our success on how many Africans are able to take advantage of this opportunity. And I think I just made the comment that no Ghanaian has called us, right?
Yeah.
But we've had about, since yesterday we made the announcement, we've had countless Nigerians. I can't even mention the number. Even this morning, as I was coming, people were still sending me messages. People are sending messages from Togo. Togo is also a French-speaking country, but they see this as they are not able to cross the divide and get to Majesty. So, and anybody who reaches out to me, I say, come to the festival, because Majestic is going to be at the festival, but it's going to be a conversation. So, bringing French and English countries together alone is a major step. I mean, that's what we've tried to do with the continental, the AFTA initiative and all of that. As a country in Ghana, or even if you take Nigeria or whatever, we are surrounded by French-speaking countries. And that's a huge population. I remember when we were having one of our conversations, one of the players from the other side said, hey, I'm Akan. She's from Ivory Coast. And she said, I'm Akan. And we have in Ghana, we have Akans here. Whether you take Togo, Benin, or whatever, you have Voltarians that are there. You also have Voltarians here. We are one people across the borders. But because we don't speak the same language, so if I'm 35 million in Ghana and I make my film, if it's not Ghana, where am I taking it to?
Nigeria, perhaps?
Nigeria? Is it Liberia? It is limiting. Fine, we find audience in Nigeria and all of that. But how about if I just cross the border to Togo or Benin or Ivory Coast or Burkina Faso or whatever, that I can go to quicker than I can get to Nigeria, perhaps. If all of a sudden this market becomes available to us, in fact, at the Africa Cinema Summit last year, we made a certain projection that if any one filmmaker is able to reach 10% of Africa's population, just 10%, at $5, just $5, averagely across, when you want to go to, and we are talking about just the cinema space, we are not talking about other platforms, just the cinema space. Average price across the world is $9.
Okay.
But let's take it for Africa at $5.
We are talking about streaming?
We are talking about cinemas.
Cinemas, okay.
Or I talk about cinemas because it's easy to calculate that monetization.
Okay, sure.
Whereas, but you can use it as streaming. So let's just, for the sake of this conversation, break it down
cinemas.
to all platforms.
Okay.
If any filmmaker is able to reach 10% of the African population at $5, you know how much that filmmaker will make?
Tell me.
$750 million.
Oh, wow. After tax?
I just pause so that
That's a lot.
So that will sink in.
And that's a lot we seem to be losing out on, right?
Thank you. So if I made my film and I was able to get to Togo, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, everywhere, one of the things that Majesty is coming up with is mobile cinemas, community cinemas. I'm able to go into villages everywhere. Let's not even use $5. Let's come to $3, $2. You see how that can change the conversation? You talked about commerce. You see how in practical terms. So for me, when I speak in practical terms, right? I made my film as a filmmaker. I made my film over 10 years ago. In practicality, I distributed that film and I made my money back. It was a tough journey. If the infrastructure had been there, it would have been easier. It wasn't. But for me, my thinking is, if I went through hoops to achieve this, somebody else doesn't need to go through the same hoops. And actually, that is what led to the formation of the Black Star International Film Festival, because it's like
a platform where everybody gets to discuss
exactly,
the
because
best
we
practices.
had, we had just finished distributing Silver Rain. We had the experience, we had the network, we had the understanding. It was like, how do we make sure that the next person doesn't have to go through these same things to be able to get their films out? And for me, that's the intention behind everything that we do. Because if that filmmaker is able to make $750 million or even $50 million, that money will then infuse into the creative space, will it not?
Yeah,
that will touch me, or it will touch you, or to touch somebody I know.
And it will touch homes.
Exactly.
And so that's the micro, macro economy. Yeah, it's sorted out. Talking about Silver Rain, when are you making your next movie?
Well, the script is done. We are starting work on it soon. We are finalizing some research, and then we will get to raising money. So maybe in a year or two, I'm feeling the creative juices again.
Awesome. I love that because I can't wait to see another movie from you. I know you have been working hard in policy, in advocacy and all that on the Black Stars International Film Festival and also the Africa Cinema Summit. But it will be good to see another film from you and see how that also goes. I want to go back to Silver Rain. Do you still make money off that movie?
I still make money off that movie. And in fact, I think we even just put it, my distributor just put it on YouTube, but even then it's a subscription-based platform that she has, channel that she has.
Okay.
They have. We are on Amazon, we are on Roku, we are everywhere. And obviously for me, this is as financial as it is artistic. And so in going to make another film, I must make sure that the distribution is tight. I must make sure that we must get into cinemas, we must get on airlines, we must get on streaming platforms and all of those things. Obviously, I must walk the talk. So that's why I started this by saying film is both an art and a business. And so everything I'm doing, I think, is also channeling. You know, the thing about this proverb we have in our local parlance that says that if you pour oil from a bottle, small will be left in the bottle. And so all of these initiatives and efforts that are making, and indeed whatever anybody does to help the space or society in any way comes back to you in many forms. And so for me, my life has been enriched, a lot by these givings that I have given in whichever form.
All right. Awesome. So we will take another break and then we will come back and talk about
Right.
what you've observed others are doing.
Right.
And that is very commendable that
Right.
we should keep at it.
If you are not adaptable, you will die. It's like a tree that will not bend. You will break. And so, all of these things are happening across the continent. A lot of countries are adopting, sadly, some of the policies that we initiated, but it has come to a standstill, and they're doing very well. And they would continue to do well. So I think generally that's the landscape. You have some new countries. I would use the word new countries because they haven't been traditionally known as
Filmmakers.
strong film countries, but they
Yeah.
are stepping into the fray very strongly. Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, even Kenya, all of these countries, Mozambique, Botswana, Zimbabwe, all of these countries. In fact, recently, even the Gambia, right, and Guinea.
And that's hope for Africa.
Exactly. They are
Yeah.
stepping into the space and, setting up film commissions. When I was in Burkina Faso, I met the Guinea film commissioner. He's going to come to the festival in September. IFC just invested in Filmmart. Filmmart is putting together film logistics for filmmakers and building a platform where industry people can meet themselves and business can happen. So it's exciting that IFC is investing in them. But IFC itself is going to also be attending the film festival in September. So these are all some of the things that are happening on the continent that is really exciting.
Awesome. It's been amazing having you. I know we're going to have a repeat because we've had such a wonderful conversation and there is more to discuss. There is more to exhaust. The future holds a lot more for us as a people of this nation and as a people of the continent. So I'm really glad that you made it. Juliet Yaa Asantewa Asante, I love you to bits.
Thank you.
And so that's been Oil Fields of Alkebulan, and Juliet has been our guest. Thank you very much for making it.
Thank you for having me.
We just concluded that interview with Juliet Yaa Asantewa Asante. She's a filmmaker. She's the founder of the Black Star International Film Festival, and she is also an advocate for the creative industry in Ghana and across Africa. She's done a lot of work across the continent. She's met a lot of filmmakers, and I would say that Juliet is one of those people who has been there, done that. And from this conversation, there's one thing that's clear. African stories are not only works of art. They are also economic weapons. From all that we spoke about, we have the blueprints, we have the templates. We just need to take advantage of these, support Pan-African studios. We need to train more filmmakers. There's works in and around. There's training already going on, but we are not training enough filmmakers. So should we put in the effort, we can train a lot more storytellers, we can train a lot more filmmakers and add up to the pool so we can have a lot more activity on that front. Over a period, the question kept coming up, would we continue to beg for distribution agreements? And in this conversation, we found out that Majesty Cinemas, the largest distribution film distribution company in Ivory Coast, is offering such great opportunities for filmmakers across the continent. And they partnered with the Black Star International Film Festival, for instance. So Yes, we are creating our own portals, our own platforms, so we don't have to beg other platforms and portals elsewhere for stringent distribution agreements. So there is hope for the Africa cinema front. There's hope for the Africa storytelling, filmmaking front. And should we pay enough attention, we will thrive in this area as well. Thank you so much for joining us for this very first episode of the oil fields of Alkebulan. It gets better. We are going to do a lot more, speak to a lot more people, delve into a lot more industries. So we hope that you stick with us and enjoy the ride as we go along. Thank you very much for your time.